What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 1 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games' weekly video game podcast about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. This one's been a long time coming. All right, today. It's the main topic today too. We'll just get right into it. 6 months essentially since the Steam Deck has launched. We are like right coming up on the middle of year 1 of our time with Valve's little handheld that could. And we've both really been enjoying our time with it. We have done a couple episodes about it over on our sister show, the Flip Screen Games podcast. And of course, we had talked about it so much, had so much fun talking about it, that we decided a few months ago now, that we were going to launch the Steam Deck podcast to have a dedicated home base for all of our Steam Deck coverage. So every week on this show, Steve and I will be coming together to discuss kind of all the goings on in the world of Steam Deck. So any major updates to the platform or the OS that happen throughout the week, any major new games that come and are playable on Steam Deck. We'll be talking about our impressions of games that we're playing, or things like, emulation on Steam Deck, or, getting maybe like stuff from the Epic Game Store to run, like all those kinds of burning questions that you have as a new Steam Deck owner, or as somebody who's waiting for your Steam Deck to show up. It'll be the perfect discussion for you here and there. So we're very excited to jump into episode 1 this week. We're going to be posting every Friday, Thursdays if you're a patron, over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. So every week we'll be here Friday for you with the hottest news and everything going on in the world of Steam Deck. So I hope you're as excited as we are to jump into it, because we've been gassed, ready to go for this one for a while,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited, and I think it's kind of a good dynamic that we've got, because I'm the kind of person who likes to go off and tinker and play with things and get them working, and you're the kind of person who just wants to be plug and play and get on and go, and so we've kind of got that difference in play style or hobbies. I guess.
I think our use cases represent the kind of spectrum of Steam Deck owners, right? Where like there are a lot of folks that do want it as to basically use it like it's like a PSP back in the day and hack it and do all this crazy stuff on it. And then there's folks like me that really, it's all about the games, right? It's all about what games can we play on this thing? What are the best experiences on Steam Deck? What are the games that you want to be playing here instead of playing on Switch? Those are the questions that I want to answer. So I think between the two of us, we should be able to, I think we'll have a pretty good podcast here. We've done a couple of these things together, here and there over the years. So,
yeah, just a few.
Just a few hundred. But before we get into all that, like I said, we've got a lot on the docket this week. We're going to be talking about the latest updates to the Steam OS. We're going to be talking about the first 6 months of Steam Deck and more. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of August. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Smokey Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support of this and all our sister shows here on Flip Screen Games. I hope you're all ready to dive into this one because, like I said, I'm ready to talk Steam Deck, all right? It's been a couple of weeks since we've even had a chance to talk about it over on the main show. But if you want to write in with your thoughts for episode 2, make sure you head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to all of the places we are all over the web. You can get our email address, questions@flipscreen.games. You can find links to our Discord where we've got a fun, inclusive group of gamers just like you out there talking about the Steam Deck. And we got to add a Steam Deck channel now. That's the next thing. So we'll have that ready for you, for all you new listeners, all you new Steam Deck heads coming into the community. So yeah, come and hang out, come chat, come be a part of the show however you choose to get involved. We're happy to have you. Go check out our Twitch channel. And, of course, if you are a new viewer or if you haven't seen any of the episodes from this week, we had our 1-year anniversary this week where we announced the Steam Deck podcast. We also announced a new full-time host over on Nintendo Noise, our Nintendo podcast. And we launched a brand new YouTube channel called Flip Screen Live where you can find archives of all of our Twitch content the day after it happens live on Twitch. So go check all that stuff out, however you choose to join us. Thanks for tuning in. So let's kick things off with a start screen. So if you're new, the start screen is our icebreaker topic that we like to start the shows off with. And I wanted to tie it back to a tweet that came out from the On Deck Twitter account, which is the official Steam Deck account, just last week, August 3rd. And they announced the latest top 10 titles of the past week on Steam Deck. And this is something they've done kind of here and there. Every once in a while, they'll kind of give an update on like what are the most popular games on Steam Deck right now. But the most recent list was an interesting one, and there's a couple of games on here that I know we're fans of. But I wanted to go through the top 10 and see how many of this top 10 you and I have played on Steam Deck combined. So the list goes in order: Multiversus, Vampire Survivors, Stray, Elden Ring, No Man's Sky, Hades, Stardew Valley, Grand Theft Auto 5, Aperture Desk Job, and Monster Hunter Rise. And they clarified that the list is sorted by daily average user. So these are the games with the highest amount of average users daily. So we had a couple on this list. Multiversus has been the number one thing I'm playing on my Steam Deck lately. I have played nothing else on it since I got into it. And I've just been jamming it out like quite a bit. So I definitely got that one on lock. And I know you played Stray.
Yeah, I did. So I played through all of Stray on Steam Deck. You can hear some of our impressions on that over on the Flip Screen Games podcast, last week's episode. It was a mixed bag, but I had a good time with it, and I'm glad to see that people are still picking it up in droves. Elden Ring, I know neither of us did. I feel like I probably would have finished the game if I'd have started it on Steam Deck. My issue with Elden Ring was it came out like 2 weeks before I got my Steam Deck. So by the time my Steam Deck arrived, the thunder had been like taken out the room because all I wanted to do was play on my Steam Deck, and like mess around with it and try out Emulation Station and all of that cool stuff. So yeah, I haven't played Elden Ring. The only other one on this list I've played is Aperture Desk Job. I don't know if you gave that one a try.
No, I haven't. I haven't touched any of the other games on Steam Deck specifically. And looking at this, I'm like, some of these are great games, right? Like this is a good list. You can definitely see Hades, Stardew Valley, Grand Theft Auto, right? Like Monster Hunter, all games that would be well at home here, or are already games that are great on Switch and should run the same or maybe even a little bit better.
Oh, they'll run way better, I would imagine. Like GTA 5, for example, is not on Switch,
Right.
and that's it's the first time you can really play that properly on a handheld. Aperture Desk Job, though, I would recommend you pick up. It was the first game I played, one of the first ones. I downloaded it when I streamed the unboxing of the Steam Deck on Twitch, and it's one of those games that like teaches you about the device and the input and
I
all of
remember
the
this.
features that you can get. So it like makes you use the trackpads, it makes you use the back buttons, it makes you use the capacitive sticks and the gyro and all that kind of stuff. So, but it does take some of the characters from Portal 2 and brings them into Aperture Desk Job, and it's really really nice little showpiece.
So yeah, I gotta say I'm a little surprised. I thought we would have more on the list, but
Thing is, though, they're like some of them are old games. Maybe I will go back to Stardew Valley and Hades and No Man's Sky, but I've played those games on other platforms, and Elden Ring I've played on other platforms.
You're talking about the old games, though. I've been playing a lot of old games on my Steam. But where's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater? All right, where's Tony Hawk's Underground? Where's Pokemon Puzzle League? Where's the games that I'm playing on Steam Deck?
Sadly, none of those are on Steam, so I don't think they can actually record the usage of them.
So what you're saying is, though, you think that Tony Hawk's Underground is in the top 10 unofficially?
Do you know what? I would imagine there's a ton of emulator games in the top 10. I would imagine there's a ton of games from, say, the Epic Games Store in the top 10. I know I was playing Fall Guys from the Epic Games Store.
Take a guess.
On my Steam Deck.
What do you think the number, like if we had to guess what the most emulated games are? Because I think the short list in my mind is it's Pokemon. It's some kind of Pokemon game. It's Simpsons Hit and Run. And
I think Persona was up there for a while.
Oh, sure.
But now that Persona's coming to Steam, I wonder if that's like dropped off. But I think Persona 5 was a big one people were trying when they first got it.
Of course you want to wait now, right? Because it's like, well, fuck it, I'll play Royal. Because Royal isn't on PS3, so you can't really emulate it on the Steam Deck. But
yeah, I would imagine that's up there. I was playing some some like fan games, like another Metroid 2 remake that ran really well. And I think the Wii U is underrated as well. And even the Switch. I think there's a ton of Switch games being emulated on here with Yuzu. Like we saw Xenoblade Chronicles 3 before it even came
I
out
I
on
thought about playing it.
on the Switch.
I thought about playing it on Steam Deck to like see how if it ran better and everything, and I was like, I bet the draw distance would be so much better on Steam
I'd
Deck.
love you to try because you obviously have a copy of the game on Switch, so it'd be great to see and do a comparison video and
Yeah,
see what the differences are between them.
help me figure out how to set it up, and I'm in.
Yeah, sure.
I already set up the Switch emulator. I never did anything with it, but I
Yeah,
set
the
it
only
up.
thing you need is the keys from the game and the ROM.
Mm. I'll tell you what. I've been playing Xenoblade 3 and picking up my Switch for the first time, really, since I got the Steam Deck. Since most of my handheld time has been on Steam Deck, and you joked about it a couple weeks ago. Man, the difference in weight on these things.
So
I
light.
forgot how much lighter the Switch was because I got so
Yeah.
used to the Steam Deck. I was like, oh, this isn't that big. And then I held the Switch in my hands and I was like, oh, right, this is
It's like, oh, baby
it's so
console.
little.
Yeah. And I remember picking up the Switch for the first time, and it was like, holy shit, this is big, because we were coming from like the
Yeah.
Vita and the 3DS, and it was massive. But now,
Hmm.
in comparison to the Steam Deck, that thing looks like a toy.
Holding
It's just
holding
tiny.
an old tiny console like that, it's really like it's a trip.
I mean, that thing's smaller than a phone. The Vita's smaller than
Yeah.
a phone these days. Like a
Look at
modern
this thing.
smartphone, it's just massive in comparison
This
to
is
that.
my smartphone versus my Vita, and they're like
Yeah, it's like the same size, but the screen's smaller on the Vita because you got to fit the controls on.
right, right. Yeah, the screen itself is like probably like a third smaller. It's wild. It's really
Yeah.
wild. Um, but yeah, I thought this is interesting. I love data. I'm a big data nerd, so I love whenever companies are like, "Oh, here's the data about the thing." Like, I hope they do this all the time. Like, if this was a thing they did once a week, I'd talk about it every week on the podcast. All right, but let's move on to our next segment. This week on Steam Deck, we got a couple small updates to the Steam Deck OS on the 8th and on the 10th. You, Steve, are certainly more the OS updates type guy. So why don't you talk about these updates? What are the things that you're most interested in from this drop?
Yeah, so we had a big merge in from the preview channel into stable last week, which was SteamOS 3.0, and that finally added the support that we've been enjoying, I imagine, for like a couple of months now, of the variable, well, not variable refresh, but refresh rate, but adjustable refresh rate on the display, along with a bunch of other features. We also got guides added to the menu. I don't know if you've seen those in your games now. There's like built-in walkthroughs, so
Oh,
you can just click the Steam button.
I don't think I
It'll
noticed
bring
that.
up there's like a guide section, and within there you can click through and have a look at like either official guides or community made guides. And there's a whole bunch of features. There was a couple of small things that were broken in that update. There was some micro stuttering that was added, and they very quickly the next day reverted back to what happened in the previous version. So that random zero point 0.2 second stutter was removed. And then there's just some smaller stuff on the preview channel, which just improves performance for Forza, along with some language fixes for the keyboards, because they've rolled out more language support for the built-in keyboards. But nice to see the updates are still coming. I would imagine we've got some big ones in the pipeline coming up now that SteamOS 3 is out.
I'm pretty impressed by how frequently they do make updates. Like looking at this page to get the doc together for today, like the last update was only on the 3rd, right? And there was another one like 2 days before that, and another one like 3 days before that. Like they're constantly making little tweaks, and you were the one that convinced me to switch over to the beta. And like aside from the odd thing that'll happen every once in a while with like the stutter that got added or thing like that, like I feel like the beta releases are pretty solid. Like I don't really notice any negative side effects of them as much as it's just like, oh, cool, new features.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things that was also added in the latest big release on the 3rd. I think it was the 3rd of August. Um, And that, sorry, it was SteamOS 3.3, not 3.0. So when SteamOS 3.3 came out, they rolled out something that was in the beta channel for a while, the ability to choose whether you want beta updates for the OS and beta updates for the Steam client, because they're different. Obviously, the OS is the underlying foundation. When you go into desktop mode, that's the Steam OS, and then the client is like Steam, the app running on top of that. So you could just have the beta stuff for the client, and like the client update this week added in like some font fixes and like keyboard fixes and things like that. But the OS is where all the big features go, like the change to the refresh rate in the display and features like that.
Very nice. Yeah, I highly recommend anybody listening, if you haven't already, switch over, take advantage of the beta stuff, because there's a lot of features that come quite a few weeks before they get to the stable side of things. Like you said,
Yeah, I mean this was months. I think it was June.
yeah, I was
They
gonna
rolled
say
out
like
like the stuff. They rolled out some of these
I
features.
think it's been at least 2 months. Yeah, which we've already been in. Like I've been taking these features for granted. So like
Yeah, because one of the huge other changes that we've had, if you've not been on the beta, is per game performance toggles. So you can set a profile just for that specific game. So, for example, in Stray, or actually Bear and Breakfast, which I'm playing at the moment, is a better example. I've set the performance to be 40 frames per second, but I've also limited the TDP. So the power draw is a lot less, and I can get like four hours out of the Steam Deck on battery.
wow,
I was away for a week. I was playing Bear and Breakfast. I was just on the sofa on the couch, and the battery was draining so slowly because I just limited the performance, and the fans just don't go at all when you turn down the TDP. It's really great.
that's really good to know. Yeah, 4 hours is a lot more than I've been able to get, and like it doesn't matter that much. I'm not really like taking my Steam Deck places. Like I'm not carrying it around like I did with the Switch in year one, where it's like, oh, I'm going out to lunch. Like let me bring my Switch so I have something to do while I wait for a friend to show up or something like that, right? Like I'm not really bringing the Steam Deck around like that. It's more like I'm using it as you know, a console I can move around the house. Like I think
Me
that's
too, but I gotta say, like taking it away for the week was super nice. Like just being able to take all
for
those
sure.
games with me, and I forgot to put it in offline mode before I left, and it was
Oh,
just it's just like, oh, okay, no worries. It just took an extra while to load, and I think it just automatically figured out that yeah, I was playing these games when I was at home. I'm no longer in range of Wi-Fi, and it just allowed me to carry on playing them as
that's
you would
great.
expect. And I was kind of worried because I was like, ah, crap, I'm gonna have to like hotspot to my phone or something to go into offline mode, but it worked just fine. So
That's good to
no
know.
issues with it whatsoever.
Yeah, and like I've taken it on a couple like little like I went back to New Jersey a couple of weeks ago and was like staying with my sister-in-law for a weekend, and I brought it with me then, but it's like I'm at her apartment, right? So it's like it's low on juice, let me plug it
Yeah,
in. Like
you've
no
got
big deal.
Wi-Fi. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, you plug it in. Yeah.
I feel like that's literally the only situation where you'd want to like be like cautious, right? It's like it's probably not the best thing to take out if you're not going to be able to sit and charge it or plug it in if you need to or whatever. But aside from that, but yeah, being
I mean,
able
it,
to
it depends what you're playing, because like looking at like this top 10 list, I'd imagine a bunch of these games you could turn down the TDP or restrict the frame rate to 40 frames per second if you
yeah,
wanted
a
to.
couple of
Like
them are
Stardew
beefy
Valley.
games though. Like
Yes, a lot of them are beefy games, but like Stray, I restricted that to 30 frames per second. I would
something like
imagine you
Elden
could do
Ring.
similar thing on Hades. But Elden Ring, you could probably get away with restricting to 30 frames per second, but you kind of want
I think
as much as you can in
it
that
would
game.
still
Yeah.
drain the battery pretty quickly though
Oh yeah, big
compared to
time.
something
Yeah,
like
big
a
time.
Stardew Valley or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of surprised how well Multiverses does. I can usually get like 2-3 hours out of it before it is a problem.
That's good. I mean, I kind of feel like 2-3 hours is where I'm at with most games. Even Days Gone, I was getting 2 to 3 hours
That's
out
good.
of it, and that's like a full AAA game. I think it depends on how optimized the title is, and they seem to put a lot of work into the big titles, at least on Valve side. Like I know in Elden Ring's case, for example, there's like a bunch of fixes for the stuttering that occurs on other platforms, but doesn't happen on SteamOS.
There you go. So we'll see if there's any updates for next week, but I think if not, these are definitely ones you're going to want to jump into and get your hands on. There's some really good quality of life stuff here. Well worth going and making the update. But let's jump into our talking point this week. We wanted to look back on our first 6 months or so with the Steam Deck. Launched back in February 25th of this year, which is crazy. I feel like I've had it for a long time at this point, even though it has only been a couple months. I think that speaks to how often I'm using it. But we've both had one since the first wave. You got yours in what, March, right? It was like right after launch, or you were in like the very first wave.
It was the second. I got it in the second week, I believe.
Second week.
I ordered 6 minutes after the pre-orders opened, so I was quite fortunate to get one.
Yeah, and if you're a new listener, you can go check out the episodes we did over on our sister show, the Flip Screen Games podcast. Steve, if you want to pull up the numbers real quick, we can give them episode numbers.
I'll put the links in the description anyway, and we'll do like an iCard. So,
and like we did an episode that week when Steve got his Steam Deck, and we talked all about it. And I decided that week I wanted one after I had famously kind of been like, I don't know, like Valve hardware, like is this thing really gonna hit? How's it like? Is it gonna be anything more than a niche thing that Steam people are into? And the time that Steve spent with it really, really excited me, and like seeing the possibilities for it as an emulation device and as a tool to play indies that, you know, hadn't or will never make it to Switch, like all that kind of stuff. I was very, very attracted to that. And a member of our community, Mango, who had heard me talking about it, reached out because he had also gotten a pre-order in like right away, but wasn't able to pick it up at that point, so it was nice enough to transfer it over to me. So I cut the line like a total monster. Apologies to all of you still waiting.
have you still got your pre-order in?
Did
you put one in?
Yep, and I'm giving it to my friend, my bandmate M. Wants to pick it up because of how much I've talked about it. So they're gonna take my pre-order.
Yeah, I think they'd really like it from what you've told me about their play style. Being like handheld oriented.
Very handheld oriented, and also somebody who really loves to go back to like retro handheld titles from time to time. Like they just replayed the Pokemon trading card game, and I was like, oh, it looks so good on Steam Deck compared to on your tiny little Game Boy SP screen, right? And it's like the pixel density, the way that it scales for old school handheld stuff it's gorgeous. I really think it's one of the prettiest ways to play those games. They look so nice.
Yeah, I love playing some retro games on mine. I've been playing more of stuff like Simpsons Hit and Run, and like PS1, PS2 era more than those like Game Boy games.
In the early days of Steam Deck, that was like all I was playing on it. Like I have played far more retro content on the Steam Deck than new stuff. Multiverses is a bit of an outlier. Like I played a couple other indie games. Like I dipped into like Hotline Miami and like, you know, some other like stuff like Party Hard and some other indie games that I really like that I know well. And was kind of like, yeah, let me like dip in here and give it a try and see how it feels on Steam Deck comparatively and all that kind of stuff. But you know, most of my time was spent like, okay, like I have all these emulators set up. Like what's an old game I've been wanting to replay for, you know, a decade or more, right? And like, let me get in there and fuck around with it. And like, I beat Tony Hawk's Underground right away. That was the first game I played and beat on Steam Deck. I played a lot of Digimon World. I've gone back to like Pokemon Puzzle League and, you know, stuff from like the Game Boy ranging up to like the PS2, GameCube era, like NBA Street Volume 2, and just a lot of these games that are like, especially licensed stuff, right? That was like, oh, this is never coming back, and it's, you know, it's been gone forever, and you know, it's just like, do you have the old legacy hardware where you can play it? Nope. Otherwise, all right, then you don't have access to it. And going through that process was really fun, and that was the most tinkering I was doing with the Steam Deck, was like in those early days, like configuring everything and being like, okay, let me make sure that the Wii U's running, let me make sure the PlayStation's running, like whatever, and getting in, futzing around with a game for a bit.
And even still, like someone else had done most of the legwork for you because you were able to use EmuDeck, and it just, you know, it's one script, downloads everything. You've got the Steam ROM manager. it'll load in all of the artwork and everything for
So
you. It's really,
easy.
really great.
It's so easy. And it's like the easiest way to like show off the Steam Deck. Like when you're like, oh, like, hey friend, look, I have the Steam Deck. What's your favorite old game? I downloaded it for you. Here you go. Like play it.
Yeah.
And it just works. It's so seamless. Like that has always been the thing I think that catches people that I've shown, right? The more casual player. They're always very like, wow, I can't believe how good that works. I can't believe you can just load it right in from Steam. I can't believe it saves natively, like all that stuff. EmuDeck, the folks behind EmuDeck, truly doing God's work, right? Like, what an incredible service they provide for nothing.
Oh yeah, it's really good. But I mean, that's the beauty of open source software in
Sure is.
general, because EmuDeck just downloads a bunch of emulators for you and configures the majority of them for you. I've actually played like a ton of games on Steam Deck. Most of the games I've played are newer games that aren't emulated. Like I played through Resident Evil 3 Remake on here. I've been playing Portal 2, Return of the Obra Dinn, Bear and Breakfast that I mentioned. I've played like a bunch of horror games and FMV games, and a bunch of games that do not have controller support at all, like Age of Empires 2 and Inscription. Neither of those have controller support at all, and there's always like a community controller configuration you can download, and most of the time it runs brilliantly.
Those are
Like
the
Bear and
games
Breakfast.
I've struggled with the most. Is like, because like I got Planet Zoo because I wanted to play it that way, and because I didn't know the controls out the box, right? Like being like, oh, like do this, and it's like I'm trying to learn the controls, but they're also not on the native thing, so it's like telling me to press keys that I don't have, and like I don't know what's mapped to what. Like
It can be tough, yeah, it can be tough.
A
But if
lot-
you click on the Steam button, it will bring up the controller config, and it'll be like the E button is A or whatever.
And I think that's one of those things too that's going to get easier as more developers come around to the idea of like, oh, let me make a configuration for Steam Deck, or like the community figures it out. Like I think it's one of those things where like some of the stuff that like maybe I'm struggling with, or that is like it's doable, but it's more obtuse than I want it to be because it's open source and people are constantly adding and iterating. Like you're gonna get there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I've had. I mean, it maybe took me like 2 minutes to get accustomed to the Bear and Breakfast profile. Like, it's the trackpad, left and right triggers are the mouse buttons. B
That's
is
nice and
spacebar,
simple.
A is the E button, and then there's a few shortcuts that are binded to the D-pad and stuff. So I'm glad that it exists, because I was super excited about playing this game at launch, and then it obviously got delayed from Switch, and the PC version launched with no controller support at all. So the fact that it's playable at all on a handheld, because of the versatility of the trackpads and all of the additional buttons on the back, like L4, L5 and R5 are mapped to the scroll wheel, so you just bring your fingers around the back, you click on them, and it'll scroll up and down. I can't remember the name of the configuration I'm using, but it's one of two that were on there, and if you just download them and see which one works best for you. And I feel like that's often the case with
Agreed.
the community profiles. Is just download them, try them. If you don't like it, there'll be another one that suits you. And if not, you can create your own. Like I've made my own custom profile that I use on all games for like all FPSs or all shooters, for example, because I like it when I hold down L2 that gyro is only activated when I'm aiming a gun. I don't want gyro to be activated when I'm just moving around, regardless of whether my finger's on the right stick or not. But because it gives me that fine control, that granular control that you would get with a mouse.
Have you played any games where the default setting was the gyro is connected to like with your thumbs being on the sticks?
That's the default for every game.
I had that in Left 4 Dead 2, and I was playing it for. It was one of the first games I booted up, and like looked great, was running great, and it was one of the games that was like approved by Steam and everything, like back when there were less of those. So I was like, great, let me try this, and
even still, that like I want to talk about that approved by Steam thing after.
Yeah. it kept stuttering because like I would be putting my fingers on the thing and I was moving the Steam Deck and like it was like jittering and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like I wonder why that's happening. Like I wonder what I need to change. And then I realized the gyro was on and I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like why is that the default? Because my thumbs are obviously on the sticks. I'm moving around and walking. Like, and I don't want to. Like it was ridiculous. I turned it off and I was like, oh, this is perfect.
They might not be. It's only on the right stick. So if you're the kind of player that moves off of the right stick when you're just moving forwards or whatever, then it's not going to activate the gyro. But
it was driving me crazy. I was so confused.
They hold their finger there. Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, I do want to touch on Steam Deck Verified and that program because as good as a concept it is, it's very flawed because the majority of games I play just are not verified at all. They've not got around to doing it, or they're unverified. It's a case of we've tested it, it didn't work, but they tested it like 3-4 months ago, or they only tested it with one specific version of Proton and they never tested it with Proton Experimental
or there's
Proton
only
GE.
I've experienced it where there's one thing that doesn't work, and it's like the game is still totally playable, but it's like, oh, like
like it might be the yellow thing. Often it's just like the font's too small.
Yeah,
or it's like okay,
or like I've had scenarios where it's like, oh, you need a keyboard for this game. It's like, okay, but I can pull up a keyboard on the Steam Deck. So like, even if I need to pull up a keyboard and type something like at one part of the game, like that's not playable, right? Like, and there are some verified games that I've heard don't run as well. I haven't experienced that, but I have seen people complain about it.
Either. But like I've had a bunch of unverified games and it put me off buying them because I was like, oh, I really want to play Age of Empires 2, but it says it's not verified, and Bear and Breakfast is not been checked at all yet because the developers are saying that they don't want to submit it yet for approval from Valve, which is how it works. The developer has to request it, which is fair enough, because if they don't feel it's ready, then they obviously don't want the negativity from like a unplayable badge. But you can just go to protondb.com, and the majority of the majority of games I've tried that are unplayable, the solution is just switch to Proton Experimental or switch to Proton GE, or here's a launch flag that you might need to put in to bypass like a launch screen or something. There are very few games I've tried that are unplayable. One game I did have a lot of issues with though was Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
Really?
And that wasn't because it was unplayable technically. It was the same thing you stumbled into with
Dragon Age.
With Dragon Age, where it's designed for a mouse, and so
no controller support.
All the menus are like mouse and keyboard, and you have to click on things, so you're constantly like dragging stuff around. There's no real controller support at all.
You have to get it on the PS3 emulator or something, I guess.
Yeah, or just not bother and play it on Xbox, which is probably what I will do. I hope
probably a better experience anyway with the FPS boost and everything, But yeah, that was the exact same thing that I ran into with Dragon Age, where I was like, oh yeah, I can't find a binding for this that works because it's just all the stuff that you like. There's like a radial wheel that they added to the console version. It's just not in the PC version, so it's like trying to use a controller to like. It just doesn't work. It's just not. It's not made that way. I think the funniest thing, before we get too far away from it, the unverified thing, the number one game on the list of most played games is unverified. Multiverses is not verified, and it runs great. Like, there are problems, but they're pretty few and far
has
between.
That not been tested, or was it tested and it was verified as unplayable?
I believe it's untested. I think it's still unverified.
Yeah, which will be because the developer's not submitted it, and that's an early access game.
Yeah, it's only in beta, so
well,
yeah. So it would make sense you wouldn't want to do that yet, anyway. But it's funny to see the number one most played game not be a game that is like Steam Deck approved. Is like, okay, so it speaks to how well things just work.
Yeah, like the only warning on that is easy anti-cheat. So I don't know. I'm surprised you didn't have any issues with it, because that was one of the things that a lot of people stumbled with on Fall Guys, was they use easy anti-cheat, and if they put the easy anti-cheat DLL in a specific folder, then the Steam OS doesn't know about it, or Proton doesn't know about it, and so you just have to move that file. Once you move that file, it works perfectly. But that's why that game was unverified.
And it works out the box,
or unplayable.
Like the anti-cheat will pop up for a second, and then the game just launches, and it's like that's it. It's super simple. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, like when I look back on the last 6 months, like I am really pleased, going from not really being sure if the Steam Deck was going to be for me or if it was going to fill a niche that was meaningful. I am really happy to have been proven wrong there. Like I love it. I love my time with it. I'm really glad I got one. And I'm excited to be a part of that first wave and see how much it's grown in just 6 months and to think about where it's going to be, in another 6 months, in a year, in 18 months. I think it's got a lot of room for growth because, I mean, there's such a strong foundation, but like we said, like it being open source, it being this thing where, anybody can develop software for it. It's exciting to think about like what happens when Game Pass comes on this thing. Like what happens when we do find easier ways to play non-native games, from Epic and GOG and beyond.
Oh, there's some very easy ways, which we'll be talking about in future episodes. Definitely let us know if you'd like to hear about a guide or something like that. And
any specific thing you want us to talk about how to do, let us know and we'll walk you through it. That's one of the many things I'd love to achieve on this show is to be able to like have a dialogue with the listener. And if you're having a problem with your Steam Deck, maybe we can try and solve it and help you out because Steve loves tinkering, so he's already done a good job of that quite a bit. So,
well, I've played a bunch of non-Steam games on Steam Deck from multiple stores. GOG, which is the easiest because it's just a DRM free
and add it to the Steam library, right?
Like you just add it in. That's the wonders of GOG. I've played a game from Ubisoft Connect, which was vile. I hated it. It was horrible to use, which was Far Cry 6. I really hope Ubisoft bring their games back to Steam. And then Fall Guys from the Epic Games Store, which took me about 2 hours to get working. And then I played for like 5 minutes and I was like, I'm kind of done with Fall
Guys. Time well spent, huh? So yeah, we'll have to.
Sometimes like the process is more enjoyable than the end result. I find that with baking as well.
I definitely get that. So yeah, if you want to hear about any of that stuff, definitely write in and let us know. Write in with your questions, your thoughts, your main topics. Whatever you got for us, hit us. This show is very in its infancy. It's part of our pilot program right now, so we are all about trying to figure out, how do we make this show the best show it can be. So if you've got feedback for us, whether you're a new listener, whether you've been around since episode 1, we'd love to hear from you. So please write in questions@flipscreen.games. Come join the Discord. Come follow us on social media. However you choose to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to get your feedback on the show and what you'd like to see us try for episode 2 and beyond. So, for episode 1 of the Steam Deck podcast, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.